Hello there, people of the internet. I want to talk about the concept of the Minuteman. It's a fun concept, but it's a lot like Megan Fox. It's fun to think about, but the likelihood of you actually enjoying it is going to be really, really small. So, the idea of the Minuteman kind of stems from American history. Way back during the times of the Revolution, the idea of the Minuteman was a essentially civilian who was going to grab his personally owned firearm and go off to do whatever gangster stuff the Minutemen were originally doing. They're gonna go mess some stuff up. I gotta pick my terminology. So, okay, I gotta choose what I say very carefully in this particular video. So, the idea of the Minuteman concept, somebody grabs their own personal firearm, goes off and does whatever skill, task, job, assignment, etc. it is that he decided he had to go take care of. And that concept still sort of reigns today, and the idea that a lot of prepared citizens see themselves as Minuteman. The idea that you grab your own personal property, your own personal firearm, and go off to handle whatever it is that you have to handle. The thing is, there's a lot of discrepancies with being a Minuteman today. There's a lot of extra nuances that goes into being a Minuteman. Way back in the day, you just grab your flintlock or whatever firearm it is that you have, if you had an old matchlock or whatever it is, grab your particular firearm and your powder, ball, patches, whatever other equipment you might need to be able to make that firearm run, maybe some jerky as a ration supply, and then you get up and you go off and you potentially fight the British or cause havoc or do whatever it is that you decide that you have to do. But then after that, you go back home and you settle in. Well, in the modern day Minuteman context, we live on a grid, and those in power that we see ourselves having to be Minutemen against, those in power know exactly where we are, exactly what we do throughout the day, exactly what we, they know basically everything about us, like without going into a full tangent about just how much they know about us. But they know exactly what we do, exactly where we are, etc., etc. And if you decide that it is time to do Minuteman stuff, then you have essentially given up your life. Like, your life in the current society is officially null and void. If you think that you can go out and do Minuteman stuff and then just return home like nothing happened, like they did in the ye old days of ye old Minutemen, it's just not gonna happen. They know where everybody is at all times, and if they don't know where you're at, they can find where you're at, because the entire country is literally a grid. And the government is extraordinarily good at finding people that they want to find. And if there's an insurrection of some kind that requires a Minutemen to be deployed against whatever sort of threat that there is, I can basically guarantee that they're going to make finding those Minutemen priority one. They're gonna quell that insurrection pretty much immediately. So if you do decide to go through the concept of being a Minuteman, most people, they treat being a Minuteman like they treat it as infantry, essentially. They'll get their fighting pack, they'll carry a bunch of ammunition, they got their rifle, they got the rifle set up, they'll have a few days of provisions, and their idea is that they're going to go off, do whatever it is that they're going to be doing. And that's as far as they think. They're like, alright, I got the Minuteman set up. If I have to go out and fight, this is what I got. And then what? Typically, if something like that happens, you're looking at several years of warfare and several years of an insurrection that you may not even win. And you need to have the logistical capabilities to be able to not only sustain yourself, but sustain the insurrection that it is that we're talking about here. So If you are just a one-man band and you want to do Minuteman stuff, you're not going to last very long. I can basically guarantee that at some point, if it gets to that point, militias are going to start to form, and there will be some logistical support. The big issue is the militias that are going to be made will more than likely be in the same sort of positions that militias being formed way back in the day found themselves in, where they had to more or less bail out. They more or less were bugging out and staying in swamps or forests or places where, say, cavalry or foot soldiers or any real force could not easily or viably get to, and that is just not an option nowadays. Nowadays, we have helicopters that have thermal on them, and they can see absolutely everything everywhere. Even if you have a particular bug out location, and you're like, alright, if things go wrong and I have to Minuteman, I'm going to go to that particular bug out location. Well, is your name on that property? Is your family's name on that property? Are they going to be able to associate whoever owns that property with you? If they can, then they're probably going to look there for you, and that is not a good, viable bug-out location. If you are going to, I don't know, there's a lot of people who say that they're going to go to some kind of public land, and they're like, alright, nobody ever comes out here. I can pretty much guarantee that at some point, somebody's going to be out there. Game wardens get around, inspectors get around, and even for the places where they don't, helicopters can basically go anywhere. It takes a lot to be able to viably bug out as a Minuteman. And if you do decide to yourself, hey, I'm going to bug out as a Minuteman, then you can't set yourself up as infantry. I hate when United States civilians try to set themselves up as like an infantry soldier. They do the research on being a really good infantry soldier and put in the time and effort in properly setting up their kit to be able to actively and viably fight. The issue is, they don't think about the logistics after that. They'll get themselves their rifle, a few days of provisions, maybe a sleeping setup. Long story short, they won't be thinking of the logistics afterwards. If you are a modern day Minuteman, I highly recommend that you set yourself up as a prepper ready to bug out. Like, you get your kit ready for bugging out and settling in an unknown location, or maybe you do know the location, but it's got to be a pretty gosh darn good one, way far out of the way where people would normally look for you. Like, for example, here in Florida, right up the road is a bunch of swamps. I got no doubts that I could disappear in those swamps for at least a little while. But if somebody was looking for me, and they're like, alright, he's not in these locations that we have on the grid that say he might potentially be there, let's go look in the swamps that are 5 minutes up the road from his house. That would probably not be a very good place to go. Now, if I were to go disappear in the plains of the Midwest, nobody would be expecting that because it's so far away from where I currently am. So that might be a better option. It's just little things like this that you have to take into consideration if you decide to Minuteman your way to completely having to give up your life. And you're going to be in that situation until that insurrection either wins or completely loses, and maybe you can get some sort of pardon or plea deal. Like, hey, insurrection's done, and the United States government is offering plea deals for everybody who just turns themselves in, who was part of that insurrection or whatever situation it is. Things would have to be really, really bad for that to happen, though. But if you decide to go out in Minuteman, you better be ready to bug out, and bug out to a location, and you better be ready to have the supplies on your person for that bugging out. You have to have the stuff available for bushcraft, you have to have the stuff available for, say, fire starting and medical, and not just a supply of food, but a means to be able to make your own food as well. I know a lot of people are going to be thinking that they're going to be relying on hunting and gathering. And here in Florida, hunting and gathering really would not be that difficult, but man, there's places out there where your ability to hunt and gather enough calories to be able to sustain yourself is just not gonna be viable. Like here in Florida, if you're starving to death, go out and get yourself a stick, cut a bunch of notches in it, and go fiddle for worms. And worms are edible, and that will be enough to sustain you. There's bugs absolutely everywhere. That'll be enough to sustain you. There's a variety of fish and all sorts of kinds of animals, and just the snakes alone. Just the snakes alone would be able to sustain you, or the birds, or whatever it is that you decide to go after. It's a good, viable option. But bear in mind that if you do decide to go hunting, that your gunfire is probably going to make some noise, and if you are bugged out and trying to hide, that might not be the wisest decision. So learn how to snare and trap, and learn how to fish silently, learn how to do what you have to do to be able to gather whatever resources it is that you need. But if you are a modern day Minuteman, don't treat it like infantry, treat it like a bug out situation, because if you have to do some Minuteman stuff, then you're going to have to bug out, and you're going to have to bug out to a location where it is extraordinarily unlikely that they will search for you, because if they do search for you in that particular location, odds are they're going to find you. I don't care how good you are at hiding, the technology nowadays is phenomenally good, and people just ignore night vision and thermals. They're like, oh, I'm gonna go hide in the woods, I'll bring camouflage or a ghillie suit, I'll be fine. And then they don't realize that the helicopter flying overhead, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. They're gonna see you down there. Even if you decide to go stay underground, you can't stay underground indefinitely, especially if you're in Florida, where our water table is just a few feet under the dirt. Like, you can dig literally anywhere in Florida down, say, 30 feet and hit water. But long story short, you gotta prepare yourself for a bug out situation as a modern day Minuteman. Don't just prep yourself for a fight and then not think about what comes after. That's gonna end up getting a lot of people hurt. So there's my ideas on the modern day Minuteman. It's a fun concept to talk about. We all enjoy it. We like just discussing the aspects of being a Minuteman, but we don't want to talk about what happens after that fight, because it's going to be years of us hiding. It's going to be years of us having to sustain ourselves. It's going to be years of us trying to rebuild what it is that we've given up, and I think that concept is why we haven't seen a whole lot of Minuteman activities. We've seen some stuff pop up throughout history in the United States, but I think that by and large, in whole, we haven't seen, especially the modern day, we haven't seen any Minuteman activity of any real intense variety. I'm trying to pick my words really carefully here. We haven't seen any Minuteman activity of any real intense or organized variety, just because people don't want to give up their lives. We are all very comfortable and very happy in comparison to how we would be if we decided to legitimately live that Minuteman lifestyle. So it's a fun fantasy, just not something that a lot of people would actually choose. Thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.